Well, I mean, I think you got to solve the problem of what happens to democracy to answer that, because they're both totalitarian worlds. So if you imagine that some Western societies could become totalitarian, then you would have that in the extreme. But it's not that easy to go totalitarian. I mean, the circumstances that Hitler operated under were quite unique, and I'm sure you've read about that. I mean, the
Yeah.
economic situation of Germany,
Right.
and a very strong communist party there, socialist party, and basically the Germans voted for Hitler to avoid voting for the socialists. I mean, they picked what they thought was a lesser of two evils, and
Right.
that turned out to be a big mistake. But um, you've got to have, I mean, there's kind of a rule book for how you've got to take over a political system, and one of the most important is you got to have the military. And so, like in
Right.
America, the military is, I don't know, emasculated, if you want to use that word, in
Oh,
relation to its
absolutely. You can
power.
use that word. It's yeah, pretty evident. If you look at, there was some Air Force, some very woke Air Force recruitment ads that came out a few years ago that definitely attest to that.
But I mean, even the fact that it's the military is controlled by the civilian government is a key important factor in keeping the society under control, because it lowers the opportunity that, like, if you had a general who was, I, I don't know, president or something, you got a big problem, because then he could
Right.
just take his own military and create havoc. So
Right.
I mean, if you're going to change a society, and we're imagining that somehow a one of the current democracies gets overthrown, you got to have a military, and you've got to have a influential. Well, you have to have a part of society that is organized and desiring change. And
Right.
um, do you know who Hannah Arendt is? She
I
was a philosopher and a psychiatrist, and she wrote between the 20s and 40s, but she wrote a great book on
hmm,
totalitarianism, which you should read if you're interested, because she
okay.
describes exactly how you get there. And
Okay.
Hitler used
Interesting.
that. I mean, you have to start with the largest block of people in society that have the same opinions, which are basic workers who are not educated and can be influenced. So you build off that, and then you add useful idiots to it, because there's another large group of the public who want to be part of a winning team and are heavily influenced by propaganda and all that. You put those two together, and then she suggests you have to have a scapegoat, which in Hitler's case was the Jews, because
Right.
you have to incite part of the revolutionary organization to want to overcome some entity that is evil and represented as evil as the Jews were, and that's an additional motivation. Then you stir all
Right.
that up with violence, and you're done. You got a totalitarian government. And so, if
Right.
any of those components are missing, you're not going to get there. Um, but it could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wonder. I see a number of potential scapegoats. I mean, well, Biden keeps throwing out the massive threat of white supremacy, which, I never heard so much
It
about that
it
since
doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.